Incredible twist, starving food truck girl's life transformed when Millionaire CEO said, "Remember who you are." Raindrops peppered the gray pavement of Chicago, mimicking the rhythm of Lily's heart as she glanced at the empty chairs and tables surrounding her father's old food truck, Dad's Comfort Bites. It had been another disheartening day. The ominous clouds overhead mirrored her despair as she grimaced at the change jar filled with a few crumpled bills, remnants of yet another night battling crippling economic tides. The weight of loss hung heavy on her shoulders, the legacy of her father stretching back to the early photos tacked to the side of the truck, now a faded reminder of joys shared, laughter exchanged, and meals prepared with love. What was the point of it all? Her dreams twisted into the knotted guts of defeat, wrestling for space alongside the burgeoning debts bloating like a storm on the horizon. As she huddled under the awning, recounting the dwindling earnings from her last customer, a single scoop of chili she barely wanted to sell, an endless list of doubts flickered through her mind. Each time the wind howled, doubt whispered louder. Should she just give in, lock up the truck, and wander back to a life that offered safety instead of this heartbreak? The thought made her stomach churn. She dived back into the soup pots, stirring the fiery crimson essence of her special recipe, but it felt like the fire inside her was flickering, on the verge of extinguishing. Suddenly, a figure emerged through the rain. Ethan, a Millionaire CEO, or so she had heard, sought shelter beneath her awning, his tailored coat dripping with rainwater. The tantalizing aroma of her chili caught his attention, and, with an air of curiosity, he stepped forward, placing an order. As he took the first spoonful, the warmth spread past his lips, greeting him with hearty depth and nostalgia. Unexpected recognition danced in his eyes, a shared moment of humanity amidst their disparate worlds. They began to talk, and Lily unveiled the spirit behind every dish she served, each telling the story of nights spent cooking with her father, the struggles of keeping his dream alive, and the fierce love wrapped in every meal. Yet, inside, Lily felt her hope battling disillusionment. Could a man like Ethan truly understand what she was living through? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue, but just as the glimmer of a new path began to light her way, mentorship from Ethan, a chance to navigate the business landscape, the tides turned. Whispers morphed into roars as scandal erupted around Ethan, allegations of corporate misconduct slashing through his reputation like a knife through butter. Lily's heart sank as headlines screamed betrayal, food truck beauty risks everything to stand by controversial CEO. What did this mean for her business? Did she dare align herself with him now? Hope twisted into anguish, grappling with fear as she struggled to reconcile the belief he had in her with the uncertainty looming before her. Her father's voice echoed in her mind, reminding her of integrity and courage, values she cherished but now found tested. And amidst the doubt and confusion, a memory flickered, a former customer, a single mother who had once relied upon Lily's meals during the worst of her days, her gratitude untainted by circumstance or wealth. Lily stood frozen, torn between loyalty and self-preservation, her mind racing in circles as she pondered a choice that could irrevocably alter her path. It felt like every leap of faith she had ever taken, stretched thin against the weight of her father's dream and her own unformed aspirations. The storm rumbled on outside, and with every moment that passed, her heart whispered loud enough to cut through the chaos, urging her to act, to choose who she would be in this tempest of uncertainty. The next morning dawned bleak and gray, heavily draped in clouds that mirrored the turmoil swirling in Lily's heart. Sitting behind the cluttered counter of Dad's Comfort Bites, she stared out at the street slick with rain. The food truck, a vessel of her father's legacy, felt more like a burden than ever, a vessel adrift amid financial ruin. Etched in grease and the remnants of her last meal, her dreams seemed impossibly far away. She could almost hear her father's laughter, mingling with the sounds of sizzling pans and bubbling pots, reminding her of the joy they used to create in this very corner of the city, her thoughts turned to Ethan, the enigmatic figure who had sparked a flicker of hope within her, now obscured by shadows of controversy. Did she need him, or was he a weight dragging her further into oblivion? A part of her, a stubborn, aching part, wanted to believe in their connection, in the warmth of shared stories and visions for the future. But how could she align her aspirations with the tainted reputation that clung to him now? Was he truly like her father, someone genuinely passionate about helping others? Or were those feelings merely an illusion, a mirage she created to escape her dire situation? The decision loomed over her like the rainclouds overhead, threatening to drown her spirit completely. She picked up her stirring spoon, hesitated, then slammed it down on the counter, sending a spray of droplets ricocheting off the metal. The chaos within her spilled over into action. Perhaps she didn't need to wait for him or anyone else to validate her dreams, perhaps she had the power to carve her own path, even amidst adversity. With a renewed sense of determination, she wiped her hands on the apron and began cleaning the truck with vigor. She rearranged condiments, washed away layers of grime, and thought back to the accolades her father had received during the early days, how the regulars flocked to them for not just food, but the comfort it provided, the community it cultivated. Perhaps it was time for her to find her own audience again, to connect deeply, not just with one esteemed individual but with the community around her. And so she returned to the kitchen, her hands moving instinctively as she whipped up a fresh batch of her chili, filling the air with the scents that beckoned nostalgia and warmth. Above the simmering pots, she contemplated the potential of an upcoming social media promotion. What if she allowed people to share their stories of comfort while tasting hers? Just as she felt a surge of excitement, her phone buzzed with the familiar, jarring sound of notifications. Tension weaved through her as she cut into the warmth of her newfound inspiration. News articles flashed before her, with headlines critiquing Ethan for his alleged corporate misconduct, painting vivid portraits of impropriety and betrayal. Yet buried in that clutter of negative press was a single comment from one of her old customers, a supportive message expressing gratitude for the food that had lifted her through difficult times. In that moment, she felt an awakening. She didn't just want to be known as the daughter of a food legend, she wanted her own identity, one forged through sharing resilience, hardship, and joy. Raising her chin, she captured a photo of her chili bubbling away and shared it online, accompanied by a heartfelt message inviting others to share their stories of comfort in the comments. The notifications chimed again, but this time it was different. She felt a piece of her old self start to resurface, igniting her heart with hope. The virtual connections blossoming around her began to feed a new dream, one untethered from Ethan's orbit. With every comment, every story shared, the weight of doubt lightened, and her confidence began to build anew. But just as the first wave of excitement surged through her, a new notification broke her concentration. A message from Ethan: "We need to talk." "Let me explain." She felt that familiar flicker, hope and dread intertwined. Could she really trust a man whose life was steeped in controversy? Or was he still the person who saw her potential in the first place? In this moment of self-revelation, she recognized the complexity of trust and the stakes of her own journey. Would she step into the unknown once more, or would she continue to carve out a new life for herself independent of anyone else's narrative? The rain fell harder outside, and the thunder rumbled in the distance, a premonition echoing within. It was time to make a choice before the storm fully unleashed itself. Lily stared at her phone, the message from Ethan glowing ominously like a beacon in the thickening storm. She felt drawn to it, yet recoiled from the emotional weight it carried. Trust felt as slippery as the rain-soaked pavement outside, fragile and uncertain. After an internal war waged through her mind, she placed the phone down and refocused on the simmering chili, its aroma still wrapping her in an embrace of nostalgia. It was time to cook, not just for survival but for a purpose that transcended mere recipes. She envisioned the posts, the stories, and the connections flowing from her food. Each ingredient stirred into the pot reflected the struggles she wanted to share, not only about her past but also about the path forward. The realization dawned on her: this was a new chapter of authenticity and perhaps even bravery she needed to unfold in her small corner of the chaotic, culinary world. With trembling hands, she snapped photos from different angles, capturing every droplet of steam that escaped the pot and every vibrant color in her dish. This wasn't just chili, it was a voice, a chance to let people in and share their comfort, fierce hurdles, and bittersweet memories. She typed out a more profound message, one that intertwined her past with her aspirations, inviting others to not just comment but actively participate in her journey. As she optimized her post to reach wider audiences, she thought about the significance of sharing connection through food. She felt more powerful than ever, not just a daughter carrying a legacy but an individual crafting her own narrative. However, even as the adrenaline stirred her creativity, a nagging thought of Ethan crept back, and could she really turn her back on past connections, especially that of someone who, despite his troubles, once appreciated her? Pushing those thoughts aside, she hit post, offering a glimpse of her offering to the world, inviting her audience into the kitchen where chaos transformed into comfort. The notifications poured in like a sudden downpour. Likes, heart emojis, and comments poured forth. For the first time in what felt like eons, genuine excitement enveloped her like a warm blanket. The recognition was invigorating, but within those virtual gratifications lay a flicker of something deeper, a sense of responsibility to use this newfound visibility for something meaningful. After some time, however, her enthusiasm waned. The vividness of the moment began to fray as she reminded herself that online engagement didn't equate to real-world results. After all, a flood of likes wouldn't pay if the truck was still parked. And as night fell, the reality set in that while connections formed online could inspire, they couldn't fill empty bellies or pay bills. With resolve stacking above her self-doubt, Lily grabbed her notepad and jotted down strategies to capitalize on her online momentum. She envisioned a kitchen pop-up night, an event that would allow locals to taste her cooking while sharing their stories face-to-face. But for this to work, she would need resources, better marketing tools, maybe an established partner, even a modest renovation of the food truck to accommodate greater demand. Her mind raced through the possibilities, but at the heart of it all lay a stark truth: she needed support, mentally and financially. That nagging thought of Ethan shifted into focus again. Could he provide the support she needed? Or would he just deepen the complications? The rain had slowed to a drizzle outside as she pressed her forehead against the cool surface of the window, gazing out at the muted streets. The decision weighed on her. She could reach out to Ethan with a clear agenda in mind, one that centered on her dreams rather than the shadows that trailed him. Or she could continue to pursue her path alone. Every direction felt precarious. It was a crossroads where ambition collided with vulnerability. In that charged atmosphere of indecision, her phone buzzed again. Another message from Ethan: "Lily, please. It's urgent." As her heart raced, she realized not only was she standing on the brink of personal growth, but she was also teetering over the edge of a pivotal moment in her journey. Could she muster the courage to leap into the unknown, or would she find safety within the walls of her own self-made cocoon? The weight of her choices pressed down as rain dripped steadily from the awning, mirroring her internal tumult as she prepared to face Ethan and possibly redefine the trajectory of her life once more. The room felt heavy, suffocated by the weight of her decisions. As she stared at her phone, the familiar patterns of doubt and hope began their relentless dance in her mind. Should she respond to Ethan? The urgency in his message hinted at something significant, but the past loomed large, a tapestry woven with shadows and voice notes increasingly muffled by pride. Lily's resolve grew stronger as she took a step back from the emotional precipice. What had she built in her small sanctuary of a food truck? Each meal was a testament to her growth, a step toward independence. She inhaled the aroma of the chili cooling on the stovetop. The spice and warmth reflected her own journey, unfamiliar yet comforting. It was more than just food, it was her stake in the ground, but responding to Ethan could unravel everything she'd worked for. Did she want to risk the hard-won progress by getting drawn into complications that had haunted her for so long? Her fingers hovered over the screen, wavering between the instinct to reach out for help and the knowledge that she could navigate her ambitions alone. As the internal tumult raged, a familiar desire sparked inside her to transform this moment into opportunity. Rather than seeing Ethan's message as an invitation back into a tangled world, what if she approached it as a chance for collaboration? A pang of uncertainty followed the idea, though. Was it possible he had changed as much as she had? Lily's breath quickened at the thought. She set the phone down and grabbed her notebook once more, rethinking her strategies. A solid plan wouldn't just need a financial boost, it should include the right partnerships. There had to be an advantageous way to align with Ethan or find a mentor who could provide the guidance she needed. She needed to harness her ambition with a richness of creativity. The thought of that kitchen pop-up night inspired something in her, a real connection not just to the food, but to the community she longed to engage with. Lily brainstormed ideas, capturing her ephemeral thoughts as they sparked like fireworks in the dusk. What if she incorporated stories from the people who visited her truck, a collection of recipes inspired by customers' anecdotes or cultural backgrounds? She could weave her experiences into their experiences, generating a richer culinary tapestry, perhaps even capturing it all on her blog. Determination solidified within her, but it was tainted with doubt about Ethan's intentions. She needed clarity. Was her focus solely on ambition strong enough to handle whatever baggage he brought to the table? A confrontation stirred within her, one that wouldn't be about forks and knives, but about confronting personal ghosts. Completing her notes, she paused and looked at the phone again. This time, it targeted her next step, crafting a response not drenched in personal history but anchored in professional potential. More than once, she had closed doors she had long wrestled with. What if she opened one now, just a crack? Lily typed in response, altering the message until it conveyed her aspirations, dropping hints of her vision and inviting him into her world. As she hesitated, her finger hovered over the send button. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes, not from sadness but from the palpable fear of letting anyone back in a space she had just begun to claim as her own. Her internal voice clashed, urging caution. Yet another urgency enveloped her. What if this could potentially change everything? Her heart thudded in her chest, mirroring the storm now raging outside. With a final breath, she pressed send. The message traveled through the ether, a reflection of not just hope but of her evolving self. Her journey was far from over. The road was still brimming with uncertainty, and obstacles loomed large ahead. She needed to keep moving forward, holding tightly to the narrative she was crafting. As she surveyed her notes, a glimmer of hope illuminated her path, a chance at redemption that didn't rest solely on Ethan but became a step towards something greater. Yet now she had invited an unknown variable back into her life, and with that single decision, the atmosphere thickened with anticipation. What consequences awaited her at this crossroads? The phone buzzed again, but this time, it was a notification of another angle from her recent post. A local food influencer had shared her chili post, and the moment was turning. Her heart raced as she steadied herself for an unexpected journey that could expand her horizons like never before. Could this new exposure lead her to the support she desperately craved? Lily stood in her food truck, the aroma of her chili mingling with the palpable excitement building in her chest. The notification from the food influencer had ignited a potential spark she didn't expect. The thought of wider recognition was thrilling but also daunting. She glanced at her phone again, half expecting another alert that might propel her forward, but all she received was silence, a moment above the brewing storm of emotions. What did success mean for her, anyway? The notion had transformed from a simple objective to a maze of responsibilities. Each like, share, or comment brought with it both exhilaration and fear. Would she be able to handle the rush of new customers? Were her culinary skills solid enough to withstand scrutiny beyond her regular patrons? She shook her head to clear the doubts creeping in. The truck was her domain, her freedom. She needed to focus on what she could control, the food and the connection she established with her customers. Each recipe was a chapter of her story, and she was ready to share more than just flavors. Today was about embracing that recognition, using it as a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block. Deciding to hone the direction her food truck would take amidst this potential surge, she rifled through her notebook. The idea of showcasing stories alongside her dishes solidified in her mind. Each person who tasted her chili had a unique story she could collect and share snippets from her customers as a form of inspiration. Lily smiled at the thought. It was less about her journey and more about the community she was beginning to build, even if it meant reaching out once again. With renewed purpose, she pulled out her phone and began looking up the influencer's account, absorbing everything about the intersection of storytelling and culinary artistry. Perhaps she could craft a narrative-rich post that combined recipes with the tales behind them, tapping into an emotional resonance that would invite her followers to engage with her food and her journey alike, yet the memory of Ethan lingered, easily bringing moments of anxiety creeping back. Trust was a fragile concept for Lily. How had those old patterns threatened her gains? She needed to exude confidence, not only in her culinary output but also in her capacity for collaboration. She refused to let the shadows of her past dictate her future. What if, instead of seeing Ethan as an anchor pulling her down, she treated him as a potential ally in her mission? Suddenly the door of the truck rattled, jolting her attention. A line of customers had formed outside, their anticipation spilling over the edges of their smiles. Lily took a deep breath, inhaling the simmering chili and the buzz of chatter, which felt like a balm to her nerves. Each interaction now mattered. As she informed the first customer about the chili's unique cultural ties, a sense of clarity swept over her. This small step, this act of sharing not just ingredients but stories, was the real opportunity she had been seeking. It wasn't just about food, it was about connection. Each bowl served would honor those who contributed their narratives, and in doing so, she could elevate her venture beyond mere sustenance. Lily made a mental note to prioritize gathering stories, perhaps involving her customers more consciously during their interactions. If she could create an environment that cultivated vulnerability and sharing, she could deepen the roots of her business while challenging her own comfort zones. As the crowd ebbed and flowed, each individual reminded her that her voice, her true self, needed to resonate within her work. It wasn't only about attracting customers but building something enduring and more meaningful. Pressing her fingers to her phone, she composed a thought as a reminder. Each meal was a connection, made a facet of her development as both chef and storyteller. When she finally glanced down, she saw a message lighting up her screen. It was from Ethan. Her heart thrummed in a complex rhythm of hope and apprehension. The digital ping hinted that perhaps he wanted more than just to reconnect. It felt urgent yet coated in unrecognizable emotions. The moment had come to confront what this could mean. Was she ready? Could she handle whatever implications he brought? As she opened the thread, the weight of expectation settled around her shoulders. This was not merely a chance for reconciliation but one to redefine her boundaries and carve out her path even further. What Ethan had to say could pivot her journey irrevocably. And with that trembling anticipation, she steadied herself, prepared to dive into this new chapter of her life. Lily's pulse quickened as she opened the message from Ethan. The words cascaded before her like a waterfall, overwhelming her senses. "Hey Lily, can we talk? I realize I hurt you, and I'd like to explain. Can we meet?" Her mind raced. The very notion of a face-to-face reunion conjured up a tumult of emotions, from anger to longing. In that moment, her entire day, brightened by the vibrant interactions just experienced in her food truck, now seemed shrouded in uncertainty. What if she opened this door only to find more chaos? But deep down, a flicker of curiosity ignited. Her life was on the verge of transformation, and healing old wounds looked like an essential step towards the success she sought. Perhaps reconnecting with Ethan could lead to greater insights about herself, both her strengths and her vulnerabilities. Taking a deep breath, she recalled how far she had come in the last few weeks. The image of her food truck, usually a cocoon of comfort, felt different now, a launching pad rather than a fortress. She needed to address unresolved issues. But could she navigate this new terrain without losing herself in the process? Lily's fingers hesitated over her keyboard. She typed out a reply, each word calculated. "I'm open to discussing things. Let us meet tomorrow at noon." The flurry of emotions she experienced as she sent the message was both exhilarating and gripping. She was reclaiming her narrative. That evening, she sought solace in her kitchen, chopping vegetables with precision, the rhythmic sound comforting her. Cooking had always been a form of meditation for Lily. As she prepared an experimental dish, a unique fusion of traditional chili with seasonal ingredients, she pondered not just the flavors but the deeper meanings behind her culinary creations. It struck her that much like her relationship with Ethan, her food needed evolution, a passionate blend of experimentation and authenticity. She had learned that engaging stories resonated with dishes, enhancing the experience for those who tasted them. Each spoonful could reflect another layer of her journey, overcoming fears, setting new goals, and embodying change. Wanting to solidify this approach, she began sketching out ideas on the notepad designated for her customer stories project. That night, she opted to feature an accompanying personal narrative, a letter to herself, chronicling her relationship with Ethan and how it had shaped her food philosophy. Dear reader, she scribbled, this dish represents forgiveness and growth, not just for others but for myself. Each bite is a reminder that life is about transformation. The spare pieces of our history can be rewritten into something flavorful, nourishing, and entirely new. With renewed resolve, she understood this meeting with Ethan wouldn't just be about confronting the past, it would be a chance to refine her identity and boundaries. She envisioned this reconnection as a defining moment, the stirrings of dreams now bubbling to the surface, needing focus and clarity. The next day arrived, wrapping Lily in a cloak of both anticipation and unease. As she closed her food truck's door for the day, she felt the weight of her upcoming meeting settle over her like a shadow. The hum of the city felt amplified, as though the world was charged with unspoken possibilities. At the cafe, she scanned the crowded room, searching for Ethan's familiar figure. When their eyes met, she was struck by an unexpected wave of emotions, not just anxiety, but the long-forgotten connection that bubbled beneath. Would this be a pivotal moment for clarity or merely a reiteration of pain? Before she could second-guess herself, Lily straightened her posture. She was ready to infuse this conversation with the resilience she had begun to cultivate in herself. This was her journey, and understanding what Ethan meant to it would guide her in her pursuit of a successful food enterprise. As they sat down across from each other, Lily took a deep breath, prepared to confront the past and mark the edges of her future, ready for whatever Ethan had to say. The conversation could lead to revelations that would shape her next steps. It was time for both of them to step into a new narrative, one that could redefine everything they thought they knew about each other. And as the first words escaped Ethan's lips, she braced herself for an emotional unraveling that could either replenish her courage for the road ahead or unravel the thread she had carefully woven together. The cafe buzzed with the ambient sounds of clinking dishes and lively chatter, but all of it faded into the background for Lily. Her focus sharpened on Ethan as he began to speak. His voice, though tinged with remorse, carried an air of sincerity that gave her pause. Lily, I know I hurt you more than I can express. I didn't realize how much my actions would impact you until now. As he spoke, she felt an unsettling mix of nostalgia and anger rise in her chest. Listening to him brought back memories that intertwined joy with betrayal. She reminded herself that she wasn't here to indulge in past wounds but to carve a new path for herself. This was about her growth, not just reconciling the past. Ethan, I appreciate you reaching out, she replied, her voice steady despite the chaotic emotions swirling within her. But I also need to be honest about how your decisions affected me. It's not just about understanding your side, it's about acknowledging the consequences of your choices. Ethan nodded, his gaze earnest, seemingly absorbing her words. This was new territory for both of them, talking without pretense, seeking clarity instead of just fighting for closure. It was refreshing, yet daunting. Here they were, rewriting the rules that had previously governed their relationship. I never intended to undermine your dreams, he continued, folding his hands nervously on the table. I was selfish when I thought I could juggle everything without realizing the impact it would have on you and your food truck. Lily felt a flicker of something she hadn't allowed herself to experience in a long time: empathy. She had spent so much time entrenched in her own pain that it was difficult to remember the complexities of his struggles. Yes, he was responsible for the hurt, yet he, too, had faced his own demons. Taking a sip of her coffee to buy herself a moment of reflection, she pondered what this meeting meant. This had the potential to be transformative. What if their conversation could not only mend the fractures in their relationship but also provide insights to enhance her business and her evolving identity as a chef? Your ambition, it reminded me of mine, she said, his remorse igniting fragments of their shared ambitions. I've started to understand that ambition can sometimes blind us to the people who matter most. I lost sight of my own goals while wrestling with my feelings for you. As she continued speaking, she witnessed Ethan's transformation. The man across from her was not just her past but also a reflection of many of her own struggles. She began to envision how their journeys could intersect again, perhaps in a healthier, more constructive manner. "I want to encourage you," she said, her heart quickening with the clarity of her revelations. "Let us recognize how our stories can intersect without overshadowing each other. I'm working to create something meaningful with my food that shares the stories of those who've inspired me. Maybe we could find a way to inspire each other, too." A spark ignited in Ethan's eyes as he grasped her intention. "I'd love to support your food truck. I didn't realize until now how passionate you are about sharing your story through food." Lily's heart swelled, but it came with caution. There was no guarantee this collaboration would heal their past, it could just as easily unravel their progress. Yet a sense of optimism washed over her. She could forge her path while expecting accountability and growth from both herself and Ethan. As their conversation unfolded, it became clear that what had started as a reckoning was morphing into an opportunity. This was her moment to set boundaries and define the space where her aspirations could flourish without being shadowed by doubt or regret. Lily leaned in, focusing not just on Ethan's words but on her own resolve. "Moving forward, we must both be willing to change. I'm ready to embark on this journey, but I need to ensure it aligns with my vision for the food truck and myself." Ethan nodded, a glimmer of unspoken understanding passing between them. The conversation lingered, laden with potential, but also a cautionary awareness of the journey ahead. As they spoke, time seemed suspended, yet the stakes felt higher than ever. What awaited her in this partnership? Would it propel her forward or threaten to eclipse the very essence of what she was trying to achieve? With these questions hanging in the air, Lily prepared herself for whatever came next, aware that the chapters of her life were not just being written in the kitchen but also in the delicate balance of relationships that challenged her to grow stronger. The next step loomed large, an unexplored realm intertwined with her ambitions. What sacrifices would she need to make in order to ensure her dreams flourished without drama or disappointment? As the conversation turned, she felt the burden of those questions settle heavily on her shoulders, eager for an answer that had yet to reveal itself. The warmth of the cafe enveloped Lily, yet a chill coursed through her as she considered the risks of reigniting their partnership. The lingering scent of freshly brewed coffee only reminded her of the comfort they once found in shared dreams. But now, those dreams felt different, loaded with uncertainty. "I need to think about this," she said, the words escaping like a cautious exhale. "A collaboration between us must feel balanced, healthy. Trust has to be rebuilt, but I can't lose sight of my own goals in the process." Ethan leaned back in his chair, visibly grappling with her words. "I understand. Ambition can be blinding. I need to remember it's not just about what I want but also what you need." His acknowledgement sparked a flicker of hope in Lily. Could they shift from the turmoil of their past to a genuine mutual support? Her heart raced as she thought about her food truck. This was not just a business, it was her passion, her voice. She wanted to share each dish as a part of her legacy, the recipes infused with emotions and memories. About the food truck, she continued, trying to navigate the precarious waters of their reunion. "I've been really diving deep into the concept. Each dish tells a story. That's what I want to showcase: who I am, the journeys of the people behind the food, and how it shapes our culture. Your support could amplify that, but it has to come with alignment on our visions." "I never paid enough attention to your vision," Ethan admitted, his sincerity ringing clear. "I want to change that. But I realize that I may have my own narrative as I get involved. How can we ensure we're not just blending our stories superficially?" Lily appreciated his willingness to explore this dynamic, yet the fear of losing her essence loomed large. Would she drown in his ambitions again? She took a moment, gathering her thoughts. "I think we need parameters. I want to ensure every choice reflects both our aspirations," she said, slowly articulating her thoughts. "We should define our roles clearly. You could assist with logistics, perhaps marketing. I handle the culinary direction and storytelling." Ethan nodded, visibly contemplating the implications of her words. "That sounds like a solid foundation. I respect your vision, Lily. But what if it becomes overwhelming? That's a risk I'm willing to take. More overwhelming would be to fall back into a pattern of losing myself. I need to carry my voice in this project. If it feels like I'm sacrificing too much, I won't hesitate to pull back. And just like that, clarity washed over her. This discussion was more than about the food truck, it was about boundaries and self-preservation. She could enter this partnership, but she refused to do so at the cost of her self-identity. The firm resolve grew within her, embedding itself into her plans. Taking a deep breath, she pressed on, and we need a timeline, something to evaluate our progress. We should meet weekly to discuss setbacks and successes. That keeps us accountable. Ethan's expression shifted, showing he understood the weight of such commitments. Deal. I appreciate your willingness to map out the future instead of just diving in. It brings hope that maybe, just maybe, we can make this work. As they finalized their plans under the glow of the cafe lights, the world outside blurred with life. Lily recognized how this opportunity could sharpen her purpose. Yet, it was coupled with the realization that she would have to confront her fears and doubts continuously. The passion she felt inside paved the way for her to push through the insecurities that plagued her. If she could voice her needs to Ethan, then perhaps she could articulate her culinary vision to the world as well. But as the last drops of coffee cooled in their cups, another concern gnawed at her, a lurking fear that perhaps the partnership could open doors she wasn't yet ready to face. Could Ethan truly understand the depth of what she wanted to achieve? The evening wore on, and as they left the cafe, they stepped into the uncertainty of a new chapter. The question haunted Lily: what obstacles would emerge in the journey to balance their ambitions? And with that uncertainty, she felt an unyielding pressure build, the pulsing anticipation of what lay ahead, compelling her to prepare for the inevitable challenges both within and outside. As Lily stepped into the dimly lit street, her breath crystallized in the chilly evening air, reflecting the weight of what had just transpired. The rhythmic pulse of the city always felt invigorating, yet tonight it resonated with her scattered emotions: hope, hesitation, ambition, and doubt intermingling like ore in a crucible. She couldn't ignore the thrill coursing through her veins, but the specter of her past partnership with Ethan loomed large, pushing against her heart's newfound eagerness. This food truck venture was her canvas, each dish a brushstroke narrating her longing, her heritage, and her dreams. Still, as she paced back towards her small apartment, she grappled with a fresh wave of concern. Would Ethan respect her boundaries? Could he truly grasp the depth of her vision, or would he inadvertently drown her voice beneath his ambitions once again? That night, as she lay in bed, the flickering glow from her bedside lamp illuminated the food truck sketches she had been meticulously crafting. Each one encapsulated a piece of her identity: painted carts that housed her childhood memories of her grandmother's kitchen and the comforting aromas wafting through their old home. She couldn't shake off the reminder that this endeavor represented not just a potential business, but also a reclamation of her spirit. Yet, doubts infiltrated her plans like a sinister fog. What if Ethan's ideas conflicted drastically with hers? What if his enthusiasm overshadowed her authentic voice? That fear began to morph from a whisper into a deep-rooted anxiety, threatening to undo her hard-fought clarity. The hard truth permeated her thoughts: she was still healing, still fiercely protective of her passion. In the days that followed, the excitement they shared at the cafe turned into palpable tension during their meetings. They would sit across from each other, stacks of notes and ideas cluttering the table, yet the air felt charged with unspoken reservations. Ethan's ambitions gleamed with promise, but the disparity in their lifestyles, perspectives, and goals began to emerge, forming fissures that countered the hope they both clung to. One afternoon, during one of their sessions, Ethan pitched an extravagant marketing scheme. High-budget video ads, influencer partnerships, and flashy promotional stunts danced jubilantly from his lips. As she listened, her heart sank. The organic, heartfelt approach she envisioned vanished, replaced by glossy images that felt completely foreign to her narrative. In that moment, a primal fear ignited within her: the fear of failing to be heard once again. "Ethan," she finally spoke, her voice quaking with resolve. "That's not who I am. My food needs to reach people's hearts, not just gain attention. I'm not chasing trends, I'm sharing stories. His enthusiasm faltered for the first time. But isn't that exactly what we need to be relevant? We can't ignore market forces. How are we supposed to connect with people when we aren't being real? What happened to elevating the craft instead of commodifying it? Her heart pounded in her chest, adrenaline leading her as she confronted each anxiety that echoed from her past. As his eyes narrowed, she sensed an impending clash, not the harmonious collaboration she envisioned, but a head-on collision of visions. After a long moment, Ethan sighed, frustration evident in his posture. I want to support your vision, truly, but you need to understand business usually demands sacrifice. Lily straightened her shoulders, determination replacing uncertainty. And that's the point, isn't it? I refuse to sacrifice my vision for the sake of fleeting success. The distance between them felt insurmountable as the conversation turned heated, pushing Lily into a familiar corner of self-doubt. Perhaps she had miscalculated, perhaps this partnership would yield more internal strife than growth. As they wrapped up the meeting, an undeniable tension hung heavy. Regrouping her thoughts was critical, yet doubts now pressed against her newly fortified boundaries. How far could they push their collaboration without losing their essence? That evening, she acknowledged the quiet stirring within her. She needed more than simply defining her voice. She needed a strategy to communicate her core values effectively while staying true to herself. With renewed purpose, she picked up her laptop and drafted a proposal, outlining her vision for how storytelling could transform into a compelling narrative for their brand. Each word carved a path towards clarity as she fought to map her intentions within this partnership, but as she hit send, a sense of anxiety seized her. What if this attempt to strengthen their communication only led to heavier conflict? The pull of uncertainty dampened her excitement again, an ominous question lingering in her mind: would her passion withstand the tumult of opposing visions, or would this culinary dream slip through her fingers like so many before? The path narrowed ahead, and as her heart raced with both fear and a flicker of determination, she acknowledged her next hurdle. It was time to confront Ethan about the shift in their alignment before resetting their direction. But would that confrontation lead to an unexpected discovery? The sun beamed brightly onto the bustling streets of Chicago, as Lily stood before Dad's Comfort Bites, now painted with fresh colors and adorned with captivating stories from her loyal customers. The food truck was no longer merely a vehicle of survival, but a thriving culinary space that shared narratives of comfort food and resilience. Months had passed since her pivotal meeting with Ethan, a crossroads that ignited both uncertainty and boundless potential. Their partnership had transformed throughout the countless challenges they had faced together, testing trust, resilience, and ambition. Lily took a moment to survey the gathering crowd, people connected not just by the desire for a warm meal but by a shared appreciation for the humanity behind each dish. Her initiative to showcase stories alongside her recipes had blossomed into a community-driven movement, elevating her food beyond traditional comfort. As the smell of her famous chili wafted through the air, knowing that it symbolized triumph filled her with satisfaction. Ethan, standing beside her, had embraced his role as a facilitator rather than an overseer. They no longer clashed over branding, instead, they collaborated to weave both of their visions into a cohesive tapestry and narrative that honored her past while embracing future possibilities. Their weekly check-ins, originally fraught with tension, had developed into constructive sessions laden with ideas and mutual respect. Ethan had proven to Lily that he could appreciate the intricacies of her journey and not overshadow her voice. Recently, they had launched a campaign showcasing real stories from customers, turning their simple food truck into a hub of empathy, laughter, and remembrance. Each story shared during Tell Your Tale Tuesdays created an emotional tapestry in which patrons not only tasted flavors but also experienced lives intertwined through the essence of food. People are hungry for connection, not just food, Lily reflected, proud of the growth not only in her business but also within herself. In her personal life, she had learned to confront her fears and communicate her boundaries successfully. With a firmly developed voice, she no longer allowed past shadows to govern her decisions. The realization that she could curate her space professionally and personally was empowering. It was this conviction that allowed her to welcome closure to the tumultuous part of her history with Ethan while forging ahead. As she prepared to serve another customer, her heart fluttered with achievement. Each interaction was an affirmation of her transformation. She was no longer the girl in the truck struggling under the pressure of her father's legacy but evolved into a respected entrepreneur crafting her narrative. The warmth radiating from her kitchen was fueled by her authentic endeavors, echoing her father's passion for cooking and connection. Just as she was about to hand over a steaming bowl of chili to a new customer, her phone buzzed with notifications. Anticipation tinged her excitement as she saw a message from a local food critic who had been following her journey closely. "Can't wait to feature your story in next Sunday's column." It read. Her chest filled with exhilaration as she realized how far she had come. The critic's recognition meant more than just exposure. It encapsulated the hard work and resilience it took to flourish amid her struggles. The validation was a testament to her growth not just as a chef but as an individual. Lily turned towards Ethan, their eyes meeting with mutual understanding. Despite their uncertain beginning, they had successfully navigated a storm, arriving at a profound partnership built on collaboration, growth, and respect. As customers continued to pour in, the truck transformed into a sanctuary of stories, each bowl of chili carrying a sense of comfort both to those who tasted it and those who shared their histories in alignment with her vision. This moment solidified Lily's commitment not only to her food, but to her identity as a chef and storyteller. With a deep breath, she stepped outside her comfort zone once again. Tomorrow, she would host a community event featuring her customers' stories, each tale projected onto the truck's side as shareable artworks. She felt solid confidence and recognized competence as she embraced her identity. It was her time to shine, standing proud in achieving a legacy intertwined with her father's love and her fierce independence. Today was just the beginning of a nourishing journey she was destined to share, crafted sip by sip, and bowl by bowl. And with that thought, Lily couldn't help but smile. She was ready. Now is the time to act. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire your journey. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and reach more dreamers like you who need to hear these stories. Comment your reactions and theories about Lily's journey and share your own path of transformation. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this extraordinary conclusion. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.